Excited.
Welcome, Tori, to the Feminine Frequency Podcast. This is such a joy and honor to have you here today for so many reasons, but I'd love to first say hello and then we'll dive into our connection and what brought us here today.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been something that I've been wanting to create and co-create with you for a while because I absolutely have loved witnessing your evolution and your growth since we first met. We were introduced, I don't even know how long ago, 3, 4 years ago,
I think
maybe.
it
Is
was
that the
four
timeline?
years ago this year. So we're almost at 4 years.
Okay, so right after you moved here, right?
Yep. Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, and we were introduced by a mutual friend, Jenna Zabrowski. So if you're listening, Jenna, hey. And she was like, you and Tori are doing really similar things. I want you to meet. And so we met after Tori was teaching a yoga class. Like I went to her yoga class and then we sat in a Starbucks, which is kind of hilarious. Um,
In a Starbucks. What do we even get?
it was like right next to the studio, so it worked. But that's not really our style, so it's kind of funny. But yeah, we were both really, I was just venturing into the online business space and into spiritual mentorship and into more of the mindset side of things. And you were kind of heading in that direction as well, moving from being a manager of a yoga studio and into your own coaching business. And so we started there, and our paths have crossed in many different ways as friends through a mastermind, through a leadership program, ALA, and now I'm, working with Tori as a business mentor, which is really expansive and amazing. So here we are.
What a ride. Here we are.
Yeah.
That's such a beautiful recap of our friendship and our business relationship. And we wear so many hats for each other, which is powerful.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't planning on going here first, but I think that it would be powerful for us to go here. Um, Wanted to share from like my personal experience what it's like to be rising alongside other really incredible, intelligent, talented, creative women and the dynamic that that can play, because my clients ask me about this all the time with comparison or feeling into competition. And I've definitely felt that as I've seen you grow your business
Mhm.
quantumly in these last few years, and would love to have you share more about your business growth. And it's been really interesting watching, what where my ego goes around,
Mhm.
seeing someone else's success in the same timeline that I've been in. And my business has been successful and I've been growing, and like it feels, yeah, it feels really vulnerable to share that it has been challenging for me to like want to be so excited about what I'm seeing for you and being genuinely like celebratory and excited for you, and also being triggered and being like all of my own stuff come up. And it's not just with you, it's in the coaching industry. But we're going to talk today about inner child wounding and how that actually plays into our dynamics in our businesses. And if there's anything that you want to share, I'd love to have you, yeah, just open up and in response to what I shared.
Yeah. That's what I love about you, though, Amy. I mean, you're the realest of the real. And you really give so much permission to be a full woman. And that includes having moments of comparison. And for me, what I realize is that comparison is what we were conditioned to feel in the presence of another woman's power. We're conditioned to feel like that's a threat to our existence and our success. It was designed that way. And when I really looked at it through that lens, I made it my commitment not necessarily to get rid of comparison, because that's part of the human experience, but to, as best I can, shift that not necessarily into celebration, but gratitude. Because she's writing me a permission slip of where I get to go. And before I met women like you and just the women that I surround myself with now, I was surrounded by people who were writing me permission slips to be small, to stay silent, to just live a mediocre life. And we sometimes confuse celebration with this like huge party, and we're, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for you. But celebration is actually like, yeah, I see you and I'm grateful that you pave this path so that I can also go ahead and do the same. But I've sort of let go of needing to be excited for everybody because that's just not authentic. It's like when you're in your shit, to try to get excited is so fabricated and performative. But I can get with gratitude. I can get with this grounded energy of if she can do it, I can do it. And maybe her trigger is my next initiation. So that's what I've used in my own life because I certainly have had that experience as well. I have it almost every single day. And I would get down on myself if I couldn't be excited for somebody. And it's actually, as human beings, that isn't authentic. That's not always the way that it's going to go. So I try to be really mindful of performative celebration and anchored, grounded celebration that really just feels neutral and like gratitude. And yep, she was always supposed to get there. I'm supposed to get there too. It just depends on our timing. And that's the second piece, is trusting our timing as entrepreneurs. And in the world of who can get there first, we start to confuse that for thank you for going first. Like there's a totally different vibe of like, oh, I got to get there first. But no, she went first. Doesn't mean that you can't still go. It's just thank you. She's actually making it easier for me. I finally have a reference point. So I have people in my life that are light years ahead of me, and I use them as a reference point. And then I also have women who are in my field who are like, thank goodness that you are setting an example of what really is possible. So we all get to arrive, and there's space for all of us.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And one of the cool things is as this process for me has evolved in our dynamics is like, I've gotten to a place where I'm like, cool, there's something that you're doing that's working. And I actually like, there was a quote once that I saw that was like, if someone triggers you, like hire her. Like,
yes.
go ask what she's doing that's working, right? Learn from her versus making it mean that you can't get there or that it's not possible for you. It's like, oh, this woman has codes. She has information that feels like it could really expand me, that could really allow me to step into that. There's something in comparison that we do when we look at someone else. We're like, if we really get to the bottom of it, it's like, oh, there's a yearning and a longing for what that woman is creating that I deeply desire. That's what it's bringing up. And then the piece of comparison becomes envy, right? Where it's like, and I was talking to Topsy about this yesterday, who's a mindset coach that I hired that Tori knows very well, that, you know, with envy, it's like this feeling of, I want what she has. And we can do that in a way that really elevates us, or we can do that in a way where like, I don't have what she has, or I'm not capable, or I don't believe that I can have what she has. And so these are really like the deeper layer nuances of comparison. It's not just this surface level conversation that I see coming up. I think that there are so many personal layers to this, and to be able to get to a point where it's like, cool, I want to learn from you. I want to, you know, really be able to hear and learn from like what's working for you, and have it be in a way where I'm excited and wanting to pay you for that, right?
Yes. I just find that so powerful. And really what I see through you and your leadership and the way you lead by example and the way that we're able to be in relationship is, there's a quote I forget when I channeled this, but it comes through from time to time, and it's, faith will move the first mountain. When you first say yes to your life, your big life, or whatever you want to create, your faith in you is what's going to move that mountain out of the way. But humility will move the second mountain. And that's where I see you right now, of like, you're in this humble moment of, okay, I can do this. I've created success, but this humility is shaping me to move the second mountain. I'm going to surround myself with the women and the people who, you know, trigger me into my next level. And sometimes that's what it takes. And then other times we're meant to be with people who are more harmonic and like more in harmony with us. And so I think it takes a certain level of discernment, the way you just map that out, to really understand, okay, how do I want to be in relationship with the women in my life? And I watch men do this so easily. Like if they see a man have something that they want, they're like, let's go be bros. Like, let's just go hang out. I want to like get your magic. But with women, we have such a resistance to finally joining forces or being at the same table. So that's why I feel like this conversation is such a testament to liberating the feminine so she can be in relationship and be in community and not be so in her head about what's right or wrong or what she has or doesn't have. And that's what creates powerful businesses, powerful voices, everything that we always talk about.
Mm, amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And before we move into kind of like our main conversation today, I'd love for you to share, if you're open, around like your journey with sisterhood. And I know that we've had, interactions around, you know, new possibilities in sisterhood for you. And it's been really beautiful to see you create new relationships in that way. So I'd love to open that up today too.
Mm-hmm. I love this question because there's your big life, and then there's your big life surrounded by the people that you love. And I think we all as women have that choice point of I'm gonna go all the way, but will I be by myself at the end, or will I have the people that I love with me? And that was a big choice that I made when I came to California, because I lived in the philosophy and kind of I was in the narrative of I don't need a lot of friends. And if you look at my human design and my astrology chart, which I love to reference just for fun, it's actually quite funny because I don't really need a ton of friends. I'm an introvert. I don't need like a ton of energy around me to get things moving. So it actually is really important that I stretch myself and have that, because I won't naturally do it. It's not like an organic way of being for me at all. Like I watch you and I'm like, how does she just have all these people? Like I just don't know how to do that. And so in Chicago, I had a couple really close girlfriends, and that's just where it stopped. And I didn't realize how much of an intimacy block I had to any new people. And that came from a lack of trust and a lack of safety in who I am. And I just surrounded myself with the two people who have known me for the longest. And then when I moved to San Diego, I realized after I got the long term relationship that I ended, I had no friends. All my friends were his friends. And it was a huge awakening of I have not built my life to be full of joy and personal fulfillment and love and community. I've just borrowed whatever the man in the relationship is going to bring and then expected that to fulfill me. And so I moved here with literally Tiffany, who was one of my one girlfriends in Chicago. She moved here. And I remember meeting you, and you really introduced me to the energy of sisterhood. And I say energy really intentionally because that's what it is. It's not necessarily a strategy or, okay, here's how I'm going to make all these friends. It's, are you energetically open to sisterhood? And before, I wasn't. I was very much so like, I don't need anybody. I have my couple close friends. We do this. Catch you later. I'm going to go do my thing. And because I'm an introvert, on top of that, I don't have this desire naturally to go and be with a bunch of people. So when I began to allow you in my life, it did trigger me. I remember we would have clearing conversations of how you wanted more intimacy from me, and I didn't even realize that I was not present for that. I was like, well, we just had coffee, like we did this, but you were really stretching me to build a relationship with you, a relationship that had honesty and openness and didn't avoid the rough spots of here's what I need from you, here's what you get to have from me, and vice versa. And so through those conversations, I really recognize that I don't have to do it all by myself, that there's people who really do care enough to support me. And then when we went through our leadership training, that's a whole community and team, which I think is a different energy, the energy of team. Am I energetically open to be like on a team with other people? And again, as an introvert, I scratch my head at that. I'm like, I got this. Like, what do you mean, team? And so that experience really taught me my impact, that I do have an impact. And when I show up in a space, it matters. And when I exit a space, it matters. And when I don't show up, it matters. It impacts other people. So that was my first introduction to not only having sisterhood and community, but being responsible for someone more than just myself. And then after that, I made a commitment to myself of I'm going to surround myself with humans that I really love. And I'm not going to do this whole thing by myself, this whole big life and build the big business, because if there's nobody to celebrate with at the end, and I don't know who to invite to my celebration party, and I have nobody to call in between, it honestly is not worth it to me. And so I consciously, still to this day, make an effort to voice memo my girlfriends, to just go that extra mile to make sure that the women in my life know that, you know, they matter and I see them, and I may not always be able to stay on the phone for 2 hours or go a bunch of places, but that I see them and I'm doing my best and that I'm here with them. And it's just completely transformed the way that I feel about my business, about my life, about the money that I have, because community is everything. And if anything ever happens, you know, let's say the whole thing, like the gig is up, what do you have left? Are your relationships. Like, that's your legacy. And so it's just become such an important part of my life. And you were a huge, 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 huge teacher in that.
Thank you for sharing. I always find it really interesting to hear other journeys with sisterhood and like their stories and how it evolves over time. And I know for myself, sisterhood did not come easily for me when I was younger, and that it is something that I learned through struggle. I learned because it was hard for me. And it's,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's really beautiful to see and witness other women on their journey to opening their heart, to allowing themselves to be seen, to allowing themselves to be supported, even if they don't quote unquote need help, but just like to know that if they need anything, that they do have those relationships and connections to lean on. Whether
Mm-hmm.
that is to be to celebrate something, or whether that's to be to cry or to share something that's really challenging, like all of it is
Yep.
part of the sisterhood dynamic. So I'm celebrating you for your journey in sisterhood and how far you've come, and also that commitment that you made to really allow people in and also to rise to the top and not do it on your own.
Yeah, girl.
Yeah.
Huge game changer.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. So, um, I'd love to shift gears and really dive into this conversation around the connection between inner child healing and your business, and like this initiation into womanhood and out of, you know, replaying the old patterns over and over again that live within us until they're looked at and healed. So, share a little bit about the relationship between doing inner child work and how that can actually support a business owner and support a woman who is wanting to step into her leadership.
This was everything for me. And when I look at inner child healing, what we're really doing is going back to the time when we weren't initiated. Because if you think about it, we went from in our mother's womb, our first home, to coming to the world, which is in itself a radical journey and transformation from womb to world. And at a certain age, all of our feelings and emotions come online. And we start to feel things, we start to notice things, we start to need things. And there's very rarely an initiation into your emotional power, your emotional resiliency. You're just expected to know exactly what to do with all these things. And so when I witness women in the world acting as a child in their business, it's simply her trying to get her needs met the way that she got her needs met when she was younger. So this showed up for me in particular directly in my business. When I first started my business, everything was about my business. I mean, you don't not work on your business. What do you mean you take a day off? Like, you always work on your business. This is something that I'll probably always have to be aware of because it doesn't just go away. But I was mothering my business the way that I was mothered. I was mothering my business the way that my mother mothered me. And I sucked all of my needs from my business. It gave me my validation, my acknowledgement, the intimacy. So everything was going into the business. And then I looked around and there was nothing else. My mom did the same thing to me. It was everything was for us and then nothing else, because it was where she got all of the things that she needed. So we'll just replay these patterns. And that leads to a codependent relationship in our business. So in order to break the codependency, we have to understand the patterns that are at play. And for me, I identified 5 of them: the people pleaser pattern, the perfectionist pattern, the superachiever pattern, the rebel pattern, and the rescuer. We have all of them within us because the people pleaser gets her needs met by micromanaging others' perceptions of her. The more she does what people want, the more love she gets. So that shows up in business all the time. We talk about that a lot. And same thing with the perfectionist, the superachiever. They each have needs that were met as a child, and they'll use rebellion or people pleasing or superachieving to get that need met. In your business, all of a sudden, there's nobody telling you where to go or what to do or how to do it. You're in this open space of figure it out. So what do you do when you're in a figured out space? You reach for patterns that you know worked in the past. And in the past, that worked, and working long hours worked, and doing everything she wanted me to do worked, and not using my voice kind of worked. I didn't get in trouble, and all those things get mixed together. And we are somewhat successful in our business, but we don't feel it. We feel like an imposter. And it's because we are. We're out of integrity with our truth. And so as we move through our business, we quickly see that it is our awakening. And I've seen it with you. I've seen it with myself. I see it in every entrepreneur. I want to start a business. Get ready to spiritually bust open, to have like a complete awakening, because it's going to bring up all your shit and you get to move through it. And then it's there that you get initiated into womanhood. And when a woman's running a business, now we're talking about a CEO. We're talking about having hard conversations. We're talking about boundaries. We're talking about making and sustaining large amounts of money. We're talking about really managing their wealth, all those things. But the inner child doesn't know how to address those. So the inner child never goes away. We just position her in a different seat. So she's seen, but she's not running the show. So I always put her like to the right of me. And I'm like, I see you, boo. You're right there. I know what you want to do, but I'm the queen. I'm in the seat of leadership. So follow my lead, and I'll always take you with me. That's the conversation I'm always having with her. Because if I let her take the lead, she's going to avoid, she's going to rebel, she's going to push people away, she's going to get scared, all these different things. So I love this because it's not about right or wrong. It's not about healed or not healed. It's about, I'm a human being. This comes along with being human. And I also want to be a CEO. So we got to make it work. We have to both and. So it's such a powerful journey. And the best part is you could be 7 figures, 6 figures, or just starting out. Your inner child's at every gate of your next level. She's like, I'm back. I'm back.
Louder. The bigger the leap, the scarier she gets. She's like,
I'm really back now. Like, you crazy.
Yeah. She's like, oh, you're going that big? Okay, yeah, let me throw a tantrum first and really get your attention to make sure that I'm coming with you.
Oh, totally. That's exactly what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is one of my favorite parts of entrepreneurship. I mean, at the core, my passion is personal development and the awakening and spiritual growth. Like that's the essence and the core of all the work that I do and what I care about and what I'm passionate about, what lights me up the most. And what you shared about like your business being an initiation into womanhood, if you let it, because there's a lot of people who just keep going in the patterns and don't actually look or don't know where to look to then get to that next level of really embodying their leadership or showing up as the queen and being willing to have those challenging conversations because they're just replaying these patterns of validation of using your business in a way to be validated, or the codependency like you mentioned. There's a big one that I wanted to share too that I see a lot, and this comes kind of with the people pleasing, but is like the fear of rejection. Is, like a lot of times this is the biggest fear that I see underlying anyone who has fear around visibility or lack of confidence is, what are they going to think about me? And that brings us back to the playground, that brings us back to high school, that brings us back to middle school, that feeling of not fitting in, that fear of looking weird or looking like not like everyone else. And to be a successful business owner, to be a leader, you have to be different. You
Yep.
have to stand out. And so this conversation around rejection, whether it's from men or whether it's from other powerful women or people from your past that you're afraid of being seen by in this new way, you will at some point have to overcome that and be okay with some people not liking you. And this is where the self-love comes in too, is like loving yourself enough, believing in yourself enough, being so connected to your divine mission that knowing that there are going to be people who don't like you. There are going to be people who are triggered by you. There are going to be people who say mean things about you, but that doesn't define you. And that isn't who you really are. And so this pattern of fear of rejection, fear of being seen, is at the core of a lot of people's self-sabotage, of procrastination, of not wanting to charge certain rates.
Yep.
Like there's so much that we can look at here. And so I love this intersection of spiritual growth and business. And this is the conversation that I'm here for. So thank you for bringing it to the table.
And I love what you do because here's the thing, because you always say like I'm not a business coach, but I love working with entrepreneurs. And here's for anybody listening, you can hand a perfect strategy, business strategy to a people pleaser, and it won't go as far unless she's integrated. So as businesswomen, we're like, I gotta invest in my business. I must need a business coach. Actually, you're going to need a team, and on that team has to be somebody that can point out your patterns and support you in your spiritual development as a woman and as a leader, because that's going to be at the end of the day when you get to that gate of the next level. It's not going to be the strategy that opens the gate. It's going to be the queen, and if she's not fully integrated, you're just going to go back. And it's the same thing with visibility. It's the same thing with all the things you're talking about. So for anybody who's wondering, like, what's my next investment? I always highly recommend to really look at it's not always a strategy gap, because the strategies are on Google. Go Google it. Like you can learn how to run a business basically on somebody's Instagram content, YouTube, Google. And that's helpful to have somebody who has strategy in their coaching realm. However, what I'm really seeing in our industry and as women as a whole is that we need more spiritually sound voices. We need people who are well versed in these patterns, because rare is the coach who's going to have the courage to call the people pleaser forward and say, listen, I have to interrupt you because no matter how much I give you right now, you're still in the self-validation cycle of micromanaging how much that person likes you. So I could give you $1 million right now and a dope business plan, and you will never know what to do with it until you get grounded. It's just the truth. And people don't want to hear it because it's easier to just do the strategy and get the thing in the sales page. But if the energy behind that is one of somebody who hasn't fully recognized her truth, what are we actually creating as businesswomen? So I feel like that's a powerful breakthrough for somebody listening, because we're always wondering, what's my next step?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that. And I believe that it's both. I believe that like the strategy without the mindset is really not that valuable. Like it might help you to feel safe. It might help you to feel like you have a plan. It might help feel like you have control over your business, but to actually implement that in a way that's really authentic and aligned and powerful and going to have the level of success or level of impact that you want it to have is going to be, it's going to fall short if you're not doing the inner work. And also I find a lot of people getting stuck in the inner work and not having enough strategy. So being so far in the feminine, so far in the emotions, being so far in, oh, let me just get into my alignment and feel amazing. And then when I feel so amazing and healed and whole, then I'll take action. Then I'll put my big girl panties on. Then I'll actually like implement things, right? No, like we need both. And we need the strategy and structure. And we also need the emotional healing and the feminine elements of business too. So this integration is important, and we need both of them.
Absolutely. And I think
Mhm.
the woman who gives herself to have both is a powerhouse, because so often we're conditioned to choose either have pain or pleasure. I either have this coach or that coach. I have this program or that program. And I love the both and, because you get to have it all. You get to have a full team that covers you on all sides. And this is, to me, a big opportunity for us to open up the field of opportunity for everyone, because there's the imagination that's at play as an entrepreneur, and our imagination is always going to make up all kinds of things. And what I've found as I've grown in my business, and I have people pleasing tendencies, like I ask my students all the time, if you were to walk into a house and heard somebody talking shit about you, what would be the worst thing you could hear? Like, what would be that thing that would bring you to your knees? And then they say it, and I'm like, that's what's holding you back from your next level of visibility. You don't want to hear that thing. And for me, it was that she's a bitch and she's arrogant and righteous. Like, ugh, even saying those words, I'm like, I don't want anybody to ever think that. So what did I do? I would hide my success. I would spend a lot of time alone. I didn't want to really share my bigness. And so as we begin to open up these different patterns and become more visible, the first thing I notice my clients realize is that, one, no one's actually going to say those things. I mean, I still to this day, I haven't heard about it. If somebody's talking shit about me online, let me know. But I still haven't heard that thing. And there's thousands of people watching. And I am learning how to hold multiple things at once. I'm holding the energy of a lot of people are resonating with my work. And in the same breath, I can hold if a few people or a lot of people aren't resonating with it. And that's where, as you move through this work, kind of the stuff that you work with your clients and when I work with my clients, where you're teaching them how to hold duality of it doesn't always have to be one or the other. It can be both. All the time, it's both. So as more people love me, there could be more people that don't like me. I still have yet to hear about it. And so my invitation is that that thing you're avoiding hearing, the truth is you're probably never going to actually hear it. And if you can just hold space for, if you do hear it, it's not going to be the end of the world. That's when thousands, millions of people can come into your world. And that's when the real impact starts.
Mm, yeah, and I've seen you so take that step into, it's polarizing. It's like, this is who I am, and there's going to be people who love it, and there's going to be people who don't. And that's actually a representation of someone really standing in who they are and in their power versus hiding just in case there's people that don't
Mm-hmm.
agree. And
Yep.
it is really courageous. And this is where leadership comes in. This is where self leadership comes in, which I just did a podcast episode about. And this is where embodied leadership, which is what we're talking about, the difference between running a business and being a coach or a healer or an agency owner and being an embodied leader. Those are two different things. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's where I'd love to go next is, what is this conversation around stepping into being an embodied leader, and like how is that different to just being a leader?
Well, a coach and PR and all those things are skills that we're going to use, like the pencil we're going to pick up during various times of our entrepreneurial journey. So there's days of the week where I'm picking up the skill of coaching and I'm using that as a method to break through a client or have an interaction with them. But leadership is a feeling, it's a choice that I consistently make every day and that we make every single day. It's not necessarily a skill. I think there's natural born leaders, but embodied leadership is a feeling. You can feel it when she walks in the room. You can feel it when she speaks. You can feel it in the words that she uses, the way in which she communicates. All shows me how embodied a person is in their leadership. So you can have an epic coach who is not embodied in leadership. That's what we saw all last summer. That's what we saw in the influencer culture. There's a lot of powerful coaches, powerful influencers that don't know how to address hard conversations, that don't know how to bridge gaps, that aren't really willing to pioneer the fires that are needing to be started to dismantle some of the things that are not correct in our world. And so this is a huge opportunity, I think, for our industry, for many business women to strengthen and define their identity as a leader. And in the same breath, notice what identities they're holding on to that are holding them back from stepping into leadership. And for me, one of those identities was the lone wolf. I identified as a woman who didn't need anybody. But leaders know that they believe in humanity, and you can't unneed people. They know how to create community and team. They know how to discern and direct and also draw in and invite. So the whole call out culture and like all the pointing of the fingers and the abrasive communication, that's not actual embodied leadership. Embodied leadership is you can feel the safety and the pleasure that somebody brings to the room. And I practice this all the time, that self-pleasure leads to self-leadership. And when you feel at home, when you're in a pleasurable conversation with yourself, you're more likely to self-lead and then bring others along with you. So I think that I love this conversation because this is what I always dreamed up for the entrepreneurial space, is that we don't just think as big as our business, but we think as big as the planet and the world and humanity. And what is our business actually creating? What's the culture it's creating? And what's the culture it's not creating? Is one of the bigger questions that I think we get to ask.
So powerful. There's so many different pieces there. And thank you for giving like just even like a snapshot, an introduction. What I see this conversation is an invitation to the woman who's listening right now to see if this turns something on within you, see if this lights something up within you, see if this activates something within you. And if it doesn't, that's cool too. But if you're feeling like you're on the edge of your seat a little bit more, you're like, oh yeah, that's the game that I want to play. Oh, that piques my curiosity. Like this may be the invitation to your next level of awakening your leadership. And wherever you're at on that journey, know that it's perfect and know that there's a deeper layer that you have access to. So that's how I see this conversation, as that activation, that invitation. If you're feeling something within you, know that you will be guided to the teacher, you will be guided to the mentors, you will be guided to the resources to take you to that next level of your leadership. And you also get to actively choose that and be courageous in it. So you mentioned something earlier, Tori, about like allowing yourself to have the support of the mindset and the business coach and all the things. And like, that's really expansive to have multiple investments at one time, to say like, hey, I'm ready for this level of support. And that's what I've recently done. And it doesn't make sense on paper, where it's like, oh shit, like I'm investing in multiple places. Like this feels really, and I have a team and I'm paying myself and I'm about to travel, like all the things. And when I really root into, okay, what type of support is it going to take for me to really get to that next level? Could I do it on my own? Maybe. And I know that there's a faster path that I trust. When I lean into that, it can happen. And then, you know, I make the investment and then I sign a new private client who pays in full. And I know that I'm reminded that I'm fully supported in all of that. That I get to have the support and be supported, not that I get to have the support and then I have to struggle and figure it out. So this is the higher level game. And I know I'm stepping into my next level of embodied leadership. And I really just honor and admire the way that you show up and everything that you're creating with, you know, Wealth Embodiment, and what you're creating in your business is just so inspiring. So I'd love to take just a couple minutes and have you share what you have going on right now, what is, you know, exciting you the most in your business, and if you have any invitations of where people can continue connecting with you, please take the mic.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate your acknowledgement and seeing me. It's really powerful, and I just want to reflect back to you just how much you lead yourself into rooms that are going to call you up, call you out, call you into your next evolution. And that's really at the base of embodied leadership. I love what you just said. It's like that choice of, okay, here's what I'm going to choose to lead myself into. And that's what's going to propel my path forward. So if you want to come play on my side of the internet, I'm at I am Tori Washington on Instagram. And that's where I update and create most of my content. And then right now we're enrolling in House of We. It's a money membership that I founded about 6 months ago. And in there, we begin to really unlearn the patterns and conditioning that we pick up as children and through our ancestors around money. So there's embodiment practices, money trainings. We go all in on so much juicy stuff. So that's coming. We actually open doors next week. And again, if you want to follow me on Instagram, that's really where I hang out the majority of the time. I'm always updating and giving tons of value over there. So I'd love to see you.
Amazing. Well, thank you for sharing your voice, sharing your wisdom, and for being a beautiful permission slip for so many women who are listening and watching you. So thank you.
Thank you.